slope-intercept form, but we're going to be dealing with parallel and perpendicular lines. Gotta say that the parallel lines are going to be the easier ones for you to do, and perpendicular are going to be the ones that make you pause and think a little bit. So goal is to find lines that are both parallel and perpendicular without any hesitation. The parallel line is going to be a little bit easier because they're going to have the same slope regardless of whatever the slope is. The parallel line is going to have the exact same slope. So this is going to be like the 10-second version. We're going to walk you through a little bit better. You're always going to notice the slope is the same. So notice 2/3 and 2/3. You're going to take the ordered pair and you're going to plug it in there. You're going to find your y-intercept, and then you're going to have a new equation. So the more challenging ones are going to have fractions, but I'm going to try to keep you with integers on the new ones today. So I'd like to do like a real quick review with you on this one. So first thing is we have to think about what are opposites. What is the opposite of a negative 2/3? And that is just basically a positive 2/3. What is the opposite of 11/12? So negative 11/12. What's the opposite of 7? Negative 7. What's the opposite of negative 1/9? Is 1/9. Now that's not too bad. Let's talk about reciprocals, and then we're going to pull it all together. What's this reciprocal of negative 2/3? Let's say negative 3/2, where you're just basically flipping the denominator and numerator. What is the reciprocal of 11/12? 12/11. What's the reciprocal of 7? Now you got to remember 7 is over 1, so that's going to be 1/7. And then what is the reciprocal of negative 1/9 is a negative 9/1. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do both. We're going to switch the sign and we're going to switch the numerator and denominator. So if you look at the answers to this, the opposite reciprocal of negative 2/3 is 3/2. The reciprocal of 11/12 and the opposite is negative 12/11. The opposite reciprocal of 7 is negative 1/7. And okay, looks like you left out. You should have, I believe, right here, this would be just positive 9. Not sure what happened to it, but hey, you get the idea. So, a couple of things. Opposite and reciprocals mean it's going to be perpendicular. If it's just opposite, if it's just a reciprocal, they're going to intersect. They're not going to form the right angles, which is going to be a key concept in geometry. So, let's take a look at some of these right here. Like I said, same slope when they're parallel, opposite reciprocals when they're perpendicular. So this is the easier one. If this line is parallel, that's the key word right there. It's going to have the same slope. So what is the slope? Negative 3. So assuming the line that's parallel is going to have a negative 3. Now it's going to have a different y-intercept. All depends where it's going. This one looks like it's a negative 1. So if we had the graph, we can easily write the equation. Now if it is perpendicular, it is going to be an opposite and a reciprocal. So the opposite of negative is positive, so this one's got to be a positive. And if I just think about flipping this, I get 1/3. So if you would zoom in on this picture, you would notice that you have a negative 3 for slope in the red line and a positive 1/3 right here, and they're going to form a right angle. So let's get into some examples right here. Like I said, the parallel ones are going to be the easier ones, and I've kind of like given away a little bit of the answer down there at the bottom. But what's the slope of the original one? You do not have to write this out, but I just kind of do it as a visual. That's going to be 4. So since it's parallel, I got to pause. That's going to be the same. It's going to be 4. So if you kind of took a peek at my work down here, I've already wrote it in slope-intercept form. I know the answer is 4x plus b. So if I go to my answer line, I'm going to write 4x. My goal is I just have to find out what my y-intercept is. So I take my ordered pair, which was 3 and negative 5. I put a 3 here, put a negative 5 here. This is going to help me find the y-intercept. So I have negative 5 is equal to 12 plus b. Well, what's your b? You got to subtract the 12 from both sides, and you're going to get b is equal to negative 17. So I have y equals 4x minus 17. So if you graphed this one, 4x minus 17, and 4x minus 2. They're both going to be parallel, and that second line that we just did is going to go through that ordered pair. So I'm going to do one more parallel, then I'm going to go into perpendicular. With the parallel, this one's going to have a fraction. And if you notice, this one it says parallel, so it's going to be the same. So my original slope is a negative half. My line that is parallel to it is going to also have a slope of negative 1/2. And then I'm going to have to do my equation. So when I do it in slope-intercept form, I always put my slope there. And then I'm going to fill in my ordered pairs, and I believe it's 8 and 1. So I take a half of 8, I think that's 4, but it's a times of negative 1, so I get a negative 4. And then I have on the other side, I have 1. So I basically have to add 4 to both sides, and I get b is equal to 5. Now if I was a student, I probably would have wrote down my slope right away because I'm the type that's going to forget things occasionally. I know it's a 1/2 x. And then my y-intercept, which is the hardest thing to figure out, is 5. Okay, so parallel lines, same slope. I go in there, I find out my y-intercept is. And what I would probably recommend is you write down your slope right off the bat, right on your answer line. Or if it's a multiple choice, you can eliminate a couple answers right away. Now, perpendicular is going to be the one that sometimes people make some easy mistakes on. We're going to identify our slope at the start off. Our slope right here of our original line is negative 3. If you're like me, you probably read too fast, you're not paying attention to details. Try to. Perpendicular means it's going to be the opposite. Well, this guy's negative, the other one's going to be positive. So it's going to be a positive 1/3. Then I'm just going to use this ordered pair, and I'm going to get a new equation. So I start off, I've got 1/3. Then I'm going to use this ordered pair of negative 6 and 4. So to find the y-intercept, I have to take 1/3 of a negative 6, which is a negative 2. I add 2 to both sides, and I am going to get a y-intercept of 6. So what's my equation? Now, my equation does not have a negative 3 in it because it's going to be perpendicular. So I believe it was 1/3. And my y-intercept is 6. So if you take a time like I particularly like Desmos, and you plot both of these lines, y equals 1/3 x plus 6, and y equals negative 3x minus 2, you're going to find out the second line does go through that ordered pair, and you're going to find out that they're going to have a right angle. So coming up on the last one with parallel and perpendicular, look for a keyword, perpendicular. What's my slope? It's 3/4, so a line that's perpendicular has got to be negative since this is positive. And I just flip the numerator and denominator, I get negative 4/3. So this is the time consuming part. I'm going to find my y-intercept. I have a negative 2 and negative 9. I believe the negative 9 is my x. Negative 2 is the y. I'll do a little bit of math here. And I got to think about this. Some people might realize a negative and negative is a positive, and they're going to go 36 divided by 3 is 12. I particularly like to do the division, and I'm going to get a 3 here. Either way, I still get it. 12. And then I am going to subtract 12 from both sides. And I'm going to get a y-intercept of a negative 14. A good thing I'm showing work. I've already forgot what my slope was. Well, my slope in the new one, since perpendicular, was a negative 4/3. And the part that I got to do the math on is I get a y-intercept of negative 14. So key things to focus in on is if you go kind of slow on this one, you realize when it's perpendicular, you notice you're going to have opposite reciprocals. So one's positive, one's negative, and they're basically flipped. How do you find this equation? You plug it in using your x and y, your ordered pair that they give you, and that's going to give you your y-intercept after you do your equation, solving it, and then you should be able to get it in slope-intercept form.